I remember watching the TV show Gilligan's Island when I was a kid. If you have never heard of this show, it was a silly sitcom about castaways stuck on a desert island. Stick with me here. Anyway, in one episode I recall, the main character Gilligan gets bonked on the head by a coconut that falls from a tree. Bonk. And he forgets who he was. He gets amnesia. He doesn't know his normal routines. He doesn't know who his friends are. Maybe he's not a sailor. Maybe he's a wealthy business tycoon. And then before the show is over, another coconut falls from the tree, bonk, hits him on the head, and he gets his memory back. Now that's not the way it works medically, obviously, but it's a common plot device. Amnesia. The first time I'd really heard of that, watching that show. Forgetting who you are. Real amnesia has serious consequences, of course. Think for a moment of what it would be like to not have your memory, to not know what you've done in the past, to not know who your loved ones are, to not even know your own personal identity. We need to be able to remember, to know our purpose and where we're going. Amnesia is related to a Greek word in our New Testament, and that word is anamnesis. So if amnesia is forgetting, anamnesis is remembering, but not any kind of remembering, not just sort of recalling data, but remembering in a way that sort of brings the past into the present. Really recalling what is essential and important. One of the famous places where the word anamnesis appears is at the Last Supper. Jesus says, "Do this in anamnesis of me. Do this in remembrance of me." He tells his followers that when you have the bread and have the cup and they are blessed, he says, bring me into your memory. Bring me all of who I am and what you know about me, the best you can. Remember that. One of the things that we do as a church is we remember Jesus. We try to recall those moments in his life and what he taught, the values he held up. Today in our gospel reading, we heard a story about one of his resurrection appearances. This case, it was him appearing to Mary Magdalene outside the tomb. The Christian proposal is a remarkable one. We say that as we remember who Jesus is, we will know more about who we are to be. Unfortunately, it can be pretty easy to forget who we are and what we value. Now, we're not talking about true medical amnesia, and none of us is going to fully forget who we are. But we can start to listen to other voices, sometimes really loud voices telling us who we are. And we can get distracted or overbusy or stressed, and we can lose track. Let me give an example. It can be like a coconut falls from a tree and hits us on the head, bonk, And we forget that we're a people of hope. We see the world falling apart, and there are some real dangers and hurts and craziness out there for sure. It can seem at times like things are getting worse. And so we can start to get cynical about the future, maybe begin to feel a little helpless, trapped, maybe become anxious and fearful. We can start to lose hope. We can forget what kind of God we have. That no matter what, we are a people of hope. Even after a brutal crucifixion, we have a God that brings life, who brings resurrection to produce new life out of a mess. Today, in particular, we try to remind ourselves that we are an Easter people and that we can sing out Alleluia even in the darkest times. To recall that God is going to have the last triumphant word. And that can give us some courage to face those tough challenges in front of us and keep loving despite our circumstances. To not forget that we're a people of hope. Or a coconut can fall and bonk us on the head, bonk, and we forget and start to think our main identity, who we are consumers. Lots of voices telling us that. Every commercial and ad is out there promising us a product that we certainly desperately need, preying on our insecurities. There's a kind of standard cultural agreement that what really matters is wealth and financial success. That's how we're ranked and valued in a consumer world. And so, you better get after this endless pursuit of more, and whatever you have, it's not enough. Of course, there's nothing wrong with making money and having nice things. That's not what this is about. But Jesus comes to tell us that how much we have is not the ultimate measure of who we are. Our core identity comes not from what belongs to us, but who we belong to. And we belong to God. We are, you and I, right now, accepted and treasured by our Creator. Why do we forget that? Jesus reveals to us that we don't have to earn our way in. With all our doubts, imperfections, and flaws, and we remind ourselves that we are fully part of the Christian community. To remember that we belong to God, and nothing, not even death, can take that away from us. Or a coconut falls from a tree, bonk, hits us on the head, and we forget that life is not a contest. We get this amnesia and start to think, well, actually, we are what others say about us, how popular we are. Social media doesn't help us with this constant competition for attention. I mean, who doesn't like being noticed and liked? This can tap into our fear that we're not good enough. We can fall into this temptation to constantly compare ourselves to others and see how we fall short. But who we are, you and I, is not ultimately about what others say about us. but rather what God says about us. And Jesus proclaims that first of all, we are God's beloved children. Why do we forget that? Holy and precious in God's sight. We can waste a lot of time and energy trying to prove something that doesn't need to be proved. We're to remember our true identity is not something we have to compete for, but because our Creator loves us just as we are. The remedy for forgetfulness, amnesia, is anamnesis, remembering. One of the ways to remember is to hear again these great stories of our salvation history, and on an Easter Sunday, to take in the good news of Christ's resurrection. When we recall who we really are, it can set us free from the games of this world, from wandering around not sure of our place and our value. And the way we view ourselves really does matter because it informs our decisions and our behavior. So today, Lord, help us to remember. Bring into our memory our true identity, that we are people of a resurrection hope, that we belong to God, and that we are God's beloved children. Alleluia.